What is going on, guys? We are finally back with another Walking Dead theory video. This time, what if Carlos trained Sarah, part 1. Shout out to Silent Echo 928able for recommending this video. Since Sarah is being more exposed to the apocalypse, she becomes more relied upon by her group. When Clementine is being cornered by the walkers, Sarah is with Pete and Luke when they rescue her. After they bring her back to the cabin, the group has to figure out what to do with her, given that she is a total stranger. Clementine would encounter Sarah after opening the door to her room. However, she is met with Sarah pointing a gun at her face the second she enters. Sarah is still frantic, but remains firm in telling Clementine to stay where she is. You can try to reason with her, which leads to Sarah lowering her gun as a sign of trust for Clementine. Clem can tell Sarah about how she got separated from Krista. Since they aren't far apart in age, Sarah is quick to empathize with her and lends her the alcohol for her wound. If you decide to threaten Sarah, Clementine will grab the gun from her since Sarah is caught off guard. Since Clementine has the upper hand in this scenario, Sarah is forced to give her the alcohol. This is a callback to season 1 if you had Lee threaten Vernon in the morgue. You can choose to apologize to Sarah, which would lead to her being a little more understanding and Clementine giving the gun back as a sign of good faith. The opposite choice would be to tell Sarah to keep quiet about the encounter. The scenario back in the shed would play out the same way, or very similar to canon, when the group eventually lets Clementine in after seeing her kill the walker. How you treated Sarah determines Carlos's reaction later on. He either grows furious with Clementine if you threatened Sarah with her gun, or he understands that Sarah helped Clementine by acting on her own instincts. Either way, he does give Clementine the benefit of a doubt, and he understands she's still a little girl living in the apocalypse. We'll fast forward to the events of episode 2 after leaving Pete or Nick, depending on your choices. Carlos kept Sarah at the house so that she'd be able to defend it from anyone trying to enter. He tells Clementine to help her keep the place secured before leaving with Rebecca to go find Alvin and Luke. Clementine goes to Sarah's room and informs Sarah about Pete's death or Nick's disappearance. The two have a discussion about the night before. If you threaten Sarah, she tells Clementine that she understands why she took such a harsh approach, and is quick to forgive her given that they're both just kids trying to survive. If you reasoned with Sarah, she tells Clementine that she's glad she was able to help. She cracks a joke saying, "I could have stitched it myself, you know," revealing that her father passed on his knowledge of medicine to her, given that it could make her a more resourceful survivor. She would still show off her gun to Clementine, only this time demonstrating that she knows how to use it responsibly. Sarah notices someone approaching the house and rushes downstairs to check it out. She tells Clementine that it's Carver and that she can't let him see her, which leads to Clementine telling her to find a place to hide. She grabs her gun and hides under the bed in her room, where Carver discovers the photo of her. After he leaves, Clementine and Sarah guard the doors until the rest of the group shows up. Later on, after finding Pete dead or saving Nick, the group sets out on their 5-day trip to reach the mountains. This gives Clementine and Sarah more time to bond by sharing their pasts as well as their survival skills. Sarah would share more details about her group's escape from Carver. As Clementine, you also have the option to share your past with Sarah, similar to how you did with Luke earlier on. If you tell Sarah about Lee, she tells Clementine that he'd be proud of where she is now. The group ends up at the bridge, where Clementine and Luke try to keep it secure. Sarah tags along to help them clear the walkers, since Carlos does trust her enough to fight on her own. When Luke falls through one of the boards, Clementine and Sarah deal with the incoming walkers. They help Luke up and keep walking until they encounter Matthew. He eventually responds to Nick raising his gun. Luke and Sarah try to signal Nick to stop, but unfortunately, Matthew ends up shot and falls off the bridge. The scenarios at the station play out similar to canon, only with Sarah having responses when Nick is arguing with Luke. She tells him that what he did was reckless, and he wasn't thinking clearly. Clementine finds the knife in the station, along with the food Matthew mentioned. You can choose to hold on to the knife or give it to Sarah. The group eventually meets Sarita, Walter, and Kenny, who turned out to be alive the entire time. Sarah is in disbelief if you decide to share more about your past with her. The group gets settled in with Kenny's crew at the ski lodge. Sarah goes with Walter, Kenny, and Clementine to check the windows until they encounter Bonnie. Sarah is surprised to see her and asks her what she's doing here. Given their history, Sarah isn't too worried about her. Bonnie makes up a story about Hal's being overrun and how she's been struggling to find food with a few survivors. Kenny isn't too cautious about Bonnie, given that Sarah knows her, so he doesn't question Walter's decision to bring some food out to her. Sarah asks Bonnie why she doesn't decide to come in and see everyone. Bonnie lies again, saying she's too much in a hurry to get back to her people. She leaves with a sad look on her face, as she knows what's coming next. Sarah rushes back to tell everybody about Bonnie, but Luke stops her before she can say anything, and tells her and Clem about Matthew being Walter's friend. Sarah says they should tell Nick so he can tell Walter the truth, but Luke disagrees and says they should keep things quiet. Despite what you choose to do, however, Walter finds out Matthew is dead after discovering his knife. When he confronts Nick about it, Sarah tries to break the news to him. You can try to stop her and let Nick deny it, or let her tell Walter. She tries to explain that Nick was only trying to protect them. Walter throws away the knife, We now skip to when the walkers appear after Clementine shuts down the wind turbine. Sarah sticks with Clementine to help her fight off the walkers. Clementine has to choose between the knife or the rifle when facing one of them. Whichever weapon you choose, Sarah will choose the other, and they take down the walker together. Nick gets grabbed by one of the walkers, and Walter has to make a decision to save him or not. If your choices lead to Walter leaving Nick to die, then Sarah shoots down the walker, saving Nick's life. Carlos yells at Clem and Sarah, telling them to get inside the lodge. Suddenly, Carver and his crew show up after killing the remaining walkers, and it's revealed that Bonnie was a spy the whole time. After Carver punches Carlos, Sarah rushes out the door and draws her gun on him. Johnny, Troy, and Bonnie all draw their guns on her. Bonnie tries to reason with Sarah and tells her to make this easy on herself. You can run out and tell Sarah to stop, or leave her fate in their hands. If you tell her to stop, Sarah and Clementine will both be restrained by Carver's crew. If you leave her alone, Bonnie will shoot Sarah in the shoulder, disarming her so she wouldn't be killed. When Carver starts beating up Carlos, she begs him to stop and tells her father to tell him where Rebecca is. As Clementine, the rest of this scenario plays out very similar to the original story. If your choices lead to Alvin being killed by Carver, Sarah yells, telling Kenny to stop. Kenny eventually gives up, and the group is taken by Carver's crew. And that, guys, is where we are going to end with part 1 of What If Carlos Trained Sarah. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate everybody coming out and supporting these videos, and I'm so glad that you guys have been enjoying this content lately. I don't plan on stopping, so please keep pouring out ideas, keep pouring out what ifs. This series will keep going because of you guys. I will see you all next time. 2 cents out.